What's up, photography pals? It's me again, and today we're testing out a £3,800 monster of a lens, the Zeiss Otus 100mm f1.4. And when I say £3,800, I'm not talking about weight, I mean British pounds sterling, of course, although admittedly this lens is pretty heavy too. In the US it costs $4,500, which is also a pretty eye-watering investment. I'd never dream of buying a lens this expensive. My mother would kill me first off, and I'd also be too afraid to even breathe near it, let alone take it out of my house for shooting. But still, I can't wait to give it a good test. It's fun to see what on earth these things are capable of. I've said in the past, in a special video for my Patreon supporters, I think it was, that my dream lens for portrait photography has to be the Sigma 105mm f1.4 Art, simply because that focal length is perfect for me, giving you beautifully compressed images without completely taking your backgrounds out of the equation. And at f1.4, those backgrounds are powerfully separated from your subject. So this Zeiss Otus lens would also be a dream portrait lens for me, although unlike the Sigma lens, this thing is manual focus only. Zeiss lenses have generally pretty lovely build quality as they are, but the reputation of their Otus series is even more special, and this lens is no exception. If you can handle its gigantic size and very hefty weight of 1.5 kilograms, over 3 pounds, then pretty much everything about that metallic lens body feels as good as it looks. The focus and distance markings are beautifully etched in yellow, and the lens's only control point, a rubber manual focus ring, turns unbelievably smoothly and with wonderful precision, a very long focus throw, which is honestly very helpful when shooting a telephoto lens at f1.4. The lens does exhibit a moderate amount of focus breathing here, as you can see, zooming in a little as you focus more closely to your subject. The only slight disappointment for me in this lens's build quality is its lack of weather sealing, as you can see here, a bizarre omission at this price point. Another very slight issue is that the aperture mechanism produces very loud clicks on stopping down, some of the loudest I've heard on any camera lens. So those are two minor flies in the ointment that I never would have even mentioned if this wasn't a $4,500 camera lens. It comes with a tough metallic lens hood that can be reverse mounted, its filter thread size is a large 86mm, and it does not feature image stabilization. Overall, gorgeous build quality here, although you'll need strong arms and a big camera bag to carry it around with you and keep it out of the rain. Alright, let's move on and look at image quality. I'll be testing it adapted onto a Canon EOS R5 with its 45MP full frame sensor. No in-camera corrections were available. In the middle of the image at f1.4, we see good contrast and excellent sharpness, although the lens isn't quite bitingly sharp here, but almost. The corner image quality is just a little softer and very dark, but still, we are seeing lots of detail here. Corner image quality is about the same at f2, but f2.8 seems just a tiny bit sharper, and finally stop down to f4 for perfect sharpness across the entire image frame. The lens stays this sharp down to f11, where a little softness begins to emerge due to the effects of diffraction. Overall, the lens is very sharp between f1.4 and f2.8 with good contrast, but if you want razor sharpness, stop down to f4. It's a great show, but I was hoping for just a tiny bit more here at the widest apertures, considering the lens's price. Anyway, let's look at distortion and vignetting. The lens projects a very mild pincushion distortion, nothing to worry about in real life. If anything, it might even make your subject look a little thinner. Less encouraging is the heavy vignetting at f1.4, and that vignetting falls particularly sharply right in the very edges of your images, making it more noticeable. Stop down to f2 for only a slight improvement, but it's at f2.8 and f4 that we see even illumination across the whole image. This lens can focus down to 1 meter. Not too bad, but it's not going to be mistaken for a macro lens anytime soon. Close-up image quality is a little softer at f1.4 than at normal distances, but still very good. Stop down to f2, f2.8 and f4 for mild improvements that gradually lead us back to excellent sharpness. Now, let's see how well the lens works against bright light. Wow, no real problems here. There is actually some flaring being projected, but it is so translucent that it's almost impossible to see. Nice. And now, one of the most important features of this lens will be the quality of its bokeh. Well, what do you think? My conclusion is simple, those out of focus backgrounds look gorgeous to me, although unfortunately the lens doesn't seem to avoid the perennial issue of cat's eye bokeh shapes in the corners of your images at the brightest apertures. And finally, related to bokeh comes longitudinal chromatic aberration. At f1.4 we do see a hint of colour fringing on out of focus highlights here, but it's not too serious. Stop down to f2 and it's mostly gone away. Well, what can we say about this crazy lens overall then? Well, let's get the obvious out the way. This lens produces some of the most gorgeous images you could imagine, with lots of sharpness, uniquely out of focus backgrounds with beautiful bokeh, good contrast and gorgeous build quality, if you don't mind focusing manually, of course, that is. For those willing to use manual focus though, it is the portrait lens of your dreams. Honestly though, considering the lens's price, I was hoping for a bit more technical image quality fireworks. I hate to be a boring old pixel peeping nerd, but at $4,500 the lens should be utterly perfect, so I was hoping for just an edge of extra sharpness at the brightest apertures here, just an edge, and a little less longitudinal chromatic aberration, and maybe a little less of the bothersome vignetting. Oh, I don't know, I really am nitpicking there, or pixel picking perhaps. The lens is truly excellent, but I'd much rather get the Sigma 105mm f1.4 art lens that I mentioned earlier instead, which features autofocus, very useful, and almost the same level of image quality at something like a third of the price. Anyone who can afford to pull the trigger on buying this lens though will surely not be disappointed. Well, what did you think of that monster? If you're watching this review because you can actually afford a lens like this, unlike me, then I definitely encourage you to check out my Patreon page down in the description below. There, supporters of this channel make a big difference to me keeping these review videos trucking on, and also get all kinds of weekly bonus content, including special exclusive videos. Ciao for now.